Hello friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the Naga Peace Talks. So let us first understand what is the current affair. So current affair is that the deadline set by the central government, the center, for concluding of the Naga Peace Talks. We will be discussing about what is Naga Peace Talks. We will discuss in detail in this lecture. So don't worry about it. So the deadline for concluding the talks, that is the Naga Peace Talks, is ending on October 31st, 2019. So the deadline set by the central government is on October 31st, 2019 for concluding the Naga Peace Talks. So the central government is actually trying to meet the deadline. So it is trying to conclude the Naga Peace Talks, and the issue here is that certain key issues are unresolved. Now you know that the deadline is almost over, and when the center is trying to conclude it, certain key issues are not addressed. So these key issues with the National Socialist Council of Nagalim, that is the NSCN, the National Socialist Council of Nagalim, has raised certain issues and these issues are not resolved. So based on this we will be discussing about Naga Peace Talks. So the topics that we will cover in this lecture would be, first one we will discuss what is Naga Peace Talks. Second one we will see how has the Naga assertion played out historically, that is the history of the Naga assertion. We will also discuss about the peace talks in the recent years. So how the peace talks have taken place in the recent years and how did it emerge and what is the present status. We will also discuss about the framework agreement between the central government and the NSCN. Now we will also discuss about what are the territorial demand. The current demand also we will discuss. We will also see what are the other issues pending and what are the areas of disagreement between the center and the NSCN, and how can it be resolved, or what can be the possible impacts of this disagreement. So these are all the topics that we will discuss today, and Naga Peace Talks is a very important topic for your UPSC preparations. So from that perspective we will try to analyze this issue in much detail in this lecture. So we have seen the current affair. The current affair is that the center is trying to meet the deadline. So center is actually trying to conclude the Naga Peace Talks, whereas there are certain unresolved issues with the central government and the NSCN. So this is what is the current affair. Let us see what is Naga Peace Talks. Now what is meant by Naga Peace Talks? Naga Peace Talks refers to the talks that seeks to settle the disputes between the central government and the Nagas. So these are the talks that would aim at settling the issues or the disputes between the government and the Naga. Now what we have to understand here is that this is not the story of today or yesterday. The Naga Peace Talks have been in place since the colonial rule. So it dates back to the colonial rule. So since then these settling disputes and the talks to settle the disputes, everything were in place. Now who are Nagas? So this is the next thing. Now who are Nagas? Nagas are an ethnic community, and this ethnic community comprises of several tribes who live in the state of Nagaland and in the neighborhood of Nagaland. So they are an ethnic community which consists of several groups of tribes who live in the state of Nagaland and also the neighboring states of Nagaland. Now let us see what are the key demands of Nagas. So what are the demands? One key demand of Naga groups has been Greater Nagalim, that would cover the state of Nagaland and also parts of neighboring states and also Myanmar. So this is the demand, Greater Nagalim. This is the demand of the Nagas. Now what is the history? In the year 1862, the British had annexed Assam. So Assam was annexed by British in the year 1862. And in this annexation, the British created the Naga Hill District. And the British not only created the Naga Hill District, but also they extended its boundaries. So the boundaries of the Naga Hill District was extended by the British. Now, the assertion of the Naga nationalism, it actually began during the British rule, and it continued after the independence, and even it continued after Nagaland had become a separate state. So Nagaland was given statehood later after independence. Even then, the demand or the assertion of Naga nationalism continued, and it's still continuing now also. So this history dates back to the British rule, and this is how the Nagaland or the state of Nagaland was initially formed, even though it was not a state. In the year 1862, when British annexed Assam, it created the hill district of Nagaland and it extended its boundaries. So even during the British rule, and even after the independence, and even after when the state, a separate state was formed as Nagaland, even then the assertion for Naga nationalism is continuing. And another issue in this regard is the increased insurgency. Now, what is meant by insurgency? Insurgency is the rebellion against the authority. So it is the rebellion against the authorities in force. So these unresolved issues of the Nagas had given rise to increased insurgency, and that has claimed thousands of lives, including the lives of many civilians. So this is Naga Peace Talks and a brief history of the Naga Peace Talks. Now let us see how was the Naga assertion in history. So let us go to the history. Let us see the sequence of the events that has happened. So the earliest sign of the Naga resistance dates back to 1918. So in the year 1918, the Naga Club was formed. So this was in the year 1918. Even though it has not to be remembered, you should know what was the sequence or how things had happened. Now in the year 1929, the club told the Simon Commission. Simon Commission came to India in the year 1929. The club, that is the Naga Club, which was formed in 1918. This is pre-independence. We got independence in 1947. So this is pre-independence. In 1929, the club told the Simon Commission to leave them alone in order to determine themselves as in ancient times. So they wanted to be freed from the Union. Now, in the year 1946, this is also before independence. We got independence in 1947. A.Z. Fizo formed the NNC, which is the Naga National Council. So the Naga National Council was formed in 1946 before the independence, and the Naga National Council or the NNC declared Naga independence, not Indian independence but Naga independence on the 14th of August 1947, one day before India got independence. We officially declared independence on 15th of August 1947, whereas the Naga National Council declared independence for Nagas on 14th of August 1947. Now, in 1951, what happened? In 1951, the Naga National Council claimed to have conducted a referendum. So they claims that they have conducted a referendum in 1951. And what is meant by referendum? Referendum is a direct tool of democracy where the people's opinion are collected directly. So under the referendum, they claim that a majority of the Nagas supported independent Naga state. So they claim that under the referendum, majority of the Nagas wanted a independent state for them. And by the early 1950s, the NNC, the Naga National Council, had taken up arms and gone underground for claiming or for establishing independent Naga state. So this is the Naga assertion in the history. Now let us see how did the peace talks evolved and what is the present status of it. So let us come to the peace talks. So first let us see the 1975 peace accord. In the year 1975, a peace accord was signed in Shillong, in which the NNC leadership, the Naga National Council, NNC leadership agreed to give up the arms. So we have seen that by 1950, early 1950s, they had taken up arms against the government. They started rebellion against the government. So they agreed in 1975 that they will give up the arms, and a peace accord was signed between the central government and the NNC leadership. So several NNC leaders including Isaac, Muwa and Kaplan refused to accept the agreement, and they broke away to form the NSCN. This is very, very important, the formation of NSCN. So it has to be remembered here that the 1975 peace accord between the central government and the NNC, some of the leaders in the NNC disagreed to it and they quitted the NNC and they started NSCN. So this is very important. Now, in the year 1988, other groups were formed. We have seen that in 1975, NSCN was formed out of NNC. Those leaders who did not agree to the peace accord or the peace agreement, they formed the NSCN. Now, in 1988, Kaplan, we have seen certain leaders who did not agree. So, Kaplan broke away even from NSCN and formed the NSCN-K. This is a grouping. Even now we can see that certain political parties, they split and they form subgroups. So likewise the NSCN-K was formed, and the Isaac and Muwa, they also formed another group, that is the NSCN-IM. So they headed the NSCN-IM. So these two groupings, it is relevant even today. We will come to it, the present status. So this is what happened in 1988. Now in 1997, so after certain rounds of agreements and talks between the government and these groups, in 1995, a ceasefire agreement was signed with the government. Now what is meant by a ceasefire agreement? It is an agreement which agrees to stop the war from both the ends. So they agreed to stop the war or the rebellion. So the key agreement under the ceasefire agreement was that there would be no counter-insurgency offensive against the NSCN-IM, and the NSCN-IM agreed that they will not attack the Indian forces. So this was an agreement between Indian government and the groups. So they agreed, this was a counter agreement where government agreed that there would be no counter-insurgency offensive against the NSCN, and the group agreed that they will not turn against the Indian forces or attack the Indian forces. Now in 2015, the center signed the framework agreement. Framework agreement is very, very important. So this framework agreement was signed between the government and the NSCN-IM, the grouping that we have discussed. And this was the beginning of the ongoing Naga Peace Talks. We have discussed in the beginning about the Naga Peace Talks. So this framework agreement gave rise to the present ongoing Naga Peace Talks. Now in 2017, six other Naga armed outfits under the banner of the Naga National Political Groups, the NNPGs, they joined the talks. So in 2017, 6 other groups also joined the grouping of the framework agreement between the government and the NSCN-IM. Now, what was in the framework agreement? Framework agreement is very important because it is under the framework agreement that we are even now carrying out the talks. So it is very important. So what was it? What was the details of the framework agreement? Here, the government has not even now spelled out the details of the framework agreement to the public, but certain information that is available. First one, the government agreed to recognize the unique history of Nagaland, its unique culture, and also the position of the Nagas and their sentiments, their aspirations, etc. So government agreed to recognize, give recognition to their uniqueness, whether it is cultural aspect, historical aspect, anything, government recognized the uniqueness. Now the NSCN, the group, NSCN appreciated political system and also the governance of the country. So they accepted and appreciated the political system, that is the democracy in the country, and the way the government is run, that is the governance of the country. Now this was the agreement. In 2019, the NSCNIM issued a statement that said that Nagaland state does not and will not represent the national decision of the Naga people. And this statement issued by the NSCN, it was in opposition to the proposal for a RIIN, that is Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland in the state of Nagaland. So this statement issued was against a proposal for a Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland. Now let us see what is the territorial demand. In the year 2018, the official sources had said that the accord, if being finalized, that is if the agreement is finalized, then it will not change the boundaries of the state. It will not change the boundaries of the state. This was the first agreement or the first condition. Second one, it will provide autonomous Naga territorial councils. So, autonomous territorial councils will be provided for Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur. So, for Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, autonomous Naga territorial councils can be provided. A common cultural body for Nagas across the states. A common cultural body will be provided, and specific institutions for the development of the state, also for the rehabilitation of non-state Naga militia. So all this will be provided, and also the removal of the AFSPA, that is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. So these are all the agreement or the proposals. If once the accord is finalized, these are all the promises. Now let us see what are the other issues. So we have seen that on certain issues the government and the NSCN have not agreed even now. So what are those issues? The first one is regarding the agreement on a separate Naga flag. So center has not agreed for this condition of NSCN to establish a special or a separate Naga flag and a separate constitution for Nagaland. So this has not been agreed by the center, and this needs a finalization now. Now the issue is that NSCN is not willing to take away this demand, and they are seeking for a solution to this, and the central government is also telling that it is also not in a position to grant these two conditions for a separate Naga flag and the Naga constitution. And now the governor of Nagaland has officially said that the central government is trying to conclude the peace talks, and it is looking for a conclusion to it. So this is the current status. So the government side is that it is going to conclude the Naga peace talks, whereas the main group NSCN in Nagaland claims that their demands are not accepted, certain other issues are pending, and they cannot conclude the agreement. So this is the present status, and you can find the PDF of this lecture on our website www.studyiq.com, and this is a very important for your UPSC preparations. This analysis of this issue is very important. And if you have any queries, you can write to me at joycey.studyiq@gmail.com for any of your suggestions, any of your comments. You can follow my Facebook page where you will get all the updates about my videos. You can also inbox me on my Facebook. Thank you.